Hey guys, ShakyDomain, with a Deboo.com surf forecast update. This forecast update effective around 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday, November 11th, 2016. And okay, folks, we are just inside of 20 days to official end of the 2016 Atlantic tropical cyclone season, and models are starting to hint at a wave in the atmosphere coming over the next 7 to 10 days that could produce our last name system of the official 2016 season. The season ends on November 30th. We'll show you that here in just a few moments. But what a fun run of surf alert conditions that we had over the last 72 hours or so along portions of the U.S. East Coast. The pattern is also setting up for another surf alert coming, guys. So we've been talking about an OBX low in the upcoming forecast. And if you go back and look at our last video or a couple of videos back, we talked about the other thing that we'd be watching for would be high pressure out in the East Atlantic. Again, we'll show you that here in just a few moments. Going to start you off with a single satellite imagery of the North America in here. And here's this gale that's left over. Now, this moved off the Outer Banks about 48 hours ago, and because it predominantly had a west-northwest fetch to it, it just gave a reinforcing shot to Puerto Rico and the islands in here as far as the swell forecast is concerned. Puerto Rico and Hispaniola and the Virgin Islands yesterday started picking up on that swell from the storm force low that we forecast 4 or 5 days ago that dropped in from Nova Scotia. That since has moved towards the North Atlantic. A secondary low developed east of the Outer Banks. This is it here. This is a gale. This is in negative swell production as far as East Coast is concerned, but again, putting a secondary shot of swell out here towards the islands. Now, in the natural flow of things, guys, now here's where it gets interesting. The natural flow of things is from the west to the east. So if I was to put this into motion for you, you would see the jet stream moving off from the west to the east. We have this area of low pressure, this gale. This is moving off towards the North Atlantic. And then you have another area of low pressure in here with this next front. And I'm going to drop this down for you. And we get into the intertropical convergence zone. And again, down in here, across Mexico, we have a predominant west to east flow in here. So the flow is like this. And what this does down here in the intertropical convergence zone is put a stop sign, if you will, right in here. Because as we pull over and go into the Caribbean, we have east to west flow with the intertropical convergence zone. And you can already see the pattern setting up that could deliver auto in the upcoming forecast. Now, mind you guys, there's uncertainty at the moment what's going on, but an area of low pressure down here in the southern Caribbean looks to develop in the next 5 to 6 days, and there's uncertainty between the models whether or not the system will lift out of the southern Caribbean over Cuba and into the Atlantic, or possibly in here over Central America and move over here into the eastern Pacific. So there's possibility of heavy rain setting up for Central America in here through Hispaniola and Puerto Rico, depending on the eventual outcome of what could develop. This would be auto if it becomes a named system, but subscribers are reminded that weak areas of low pressure are known to dump copious amounts of rain. Now I'm going to move you back up here, and we're going to get into the near-term forecast, because the GFS is suggesting that an area of low pressure down in here in the Bay of Campeche may try to lift out in here towards the northern Gulf and then across South Florida, and then another OBX low in here develop. Now, if you followed our forecast before, we talked about the OBX low and the two solutions on how it can happen, and it's just like that area of low pressure that dropped out of Nova Scotia and moved east of the mid-Atlantic. You either have that as a clipper type system, and or you get something lifting up out of the Caribbean in here across Florida and then up to the Outer Banks. So we'll show you that here in the 1200Z GFS. This is last night's run of the GFS, and this is current now, guys. Let me back this up now. It wasn't current. All right, so this is current. We've got a gale here. That's this area of low pressure that is east of the mid-Atlantic. That's off it on its way towards the North Atlantic. I'll advance the model for you. And it's right about in here at about 96 hours. If you look over here at the Bay of Campeche, you'll see how it kind of rounds out and the pattern, because again, the flow is from the west to the east in here. You'll see how it starts to drag some low pressure across Florida and into the Nook in here, south of the Outer Banks. Now let's go back and talk about this high pressure that we were talking about. If I back the model up, watch how this high pressure digs in here. And this is where we said could get, in our last video update, some east-northeast swell going in here. This is a fairly tight gradient of east-northeast winds pushing in here. But then look over here off Florida. Look what happens. This is at 120 hours, guys. So this is 5 days going into 6 days. This would be almost a week from now. This is Wednesday of next week, and then into Thursday. And look at this strong high pressure, and then now some strong southerly flow. This is going to set up possible surf alert for portions of the mid-Atlantic in here, depending on the exact setup. As that area of low pressure now spins up to the north, a new area of low pressure. This is next Friday, so we're a week out now, setting up a northeast fetch again, just like we had similar with that storm force low that gave us that surf alert. But look down here in the in the southern Caribbean, area of low pressure now develops out here. This is 10 days, and the GFS wants to kind of leave it in here at stationary. Won't advance the model past 10 days due to uncertainty, but as if I was to advance the model, it moves into Central America as a rainmaker. If we switch over to the last night's run of the Euro, now this is that storm force low that dropped out of Nova Scotia that gave us the surf alert over the last 72 hours. I'm going to advance the model for you, and you can see it moves off past Newfoundland into the North Atlantic. Here's that secondary low that developed east of the Outer Banks. This is current. And then look what happens again now, guys. This is starting at 96 hours. Here's that high pressure starting to create some northeast swell out here in the East Atlantic, pushing the ocean in our direction. But then look down here in the southern Caribbean. This is day 6, day 7, day 8, lifting over western Cuba, day 9, and day 10. So lots of uncertainty, but it looks like a wave in the atmosphere is coming through, where we're going to switch to a possible last shot at some tropical development in the upcoming forecast. That's all we got for you for now, guys. Stay tuned for the next update.